Today, it's Edwin's Monday evening property rant. Hello again, it's Martin North from Digital Finance Analytics, where I'm the latest post covering finance and property news. It's another Monday evening, and of course, Edwin is back with me for another rant. Hello, Edwin. How are you going? Good signal tonight.
Strong signal, Martin. Strong signal. Where the satellite dish is 5 meters higher than what it was before, so I needed to clear some trees, and we're all firing. So we're ready to rumble.
Yeah, and I think we're going to have a big rumble on the whole question of auctions. You know, should they be allowed? What disclosure should you actually have? And are consumers being taken for a ride again and again and again?
Yeah, all's fair in love and buying property. So I'm going to put it out there. I'm going to look if our PM can make people cry. I reckon I can make auctioneers and particularly Tom cry as well, right? I've got the right. If the PM has the right to make people cry, I reckon. I want to make some auctioneers cry. But look, I guess what we've got to do, Martin, is bring it all into context, and that is, one of the main things with regards to auctions. You and I have spoken about the psychology behind auctions and as to what happens and the smoke and mirrors that go on. But look, with all due respect to my colleagues out there in the bigger real estate arena. And that is, I'm being dead set serious about this. So I think the state government needs to put a stop pause on auction sale by auction until the industry really gets its act together and starts being a lot fairer and more transparent with a lot of the information that comes out. So we're gonna tackle this whole thing about auctions. And I guess to do so, let's first start looking at, why auctions? And I mean, look, it's no secret that auction campaigns serve two main purposes, and this is the current as we know it, as you and I know, and as followers and listeners and viewers of the rant know it. And the first and foremost. In my opinion, I've formed the opinion over the last couple of decades, is that selling agents make a quicker commission due to shorter marketing campaigns, and that's what auctions have done over the last 15, 17 years. That they've really taken a strong run. When I started in real estate in a lot of parts of Sydney, auctions weren't the flavour of the month. It was something that you basically saw in the lower North Shore or in the eastern suburbs. But in the northwest region and the west region, you really didn't come across many auctions when I started 28 years ago. And this is what it's come back to, these two main points. And the second one obviously being that selling agents are able to inflate marketing costs, and guess who pays for it? Vendors pay for it. So at the end of the day, the winners, the losers are both, in my opinion, are both vendors, and also because I don't believe that the majority of auctions achieve the highest value that an agent could get because of the short auction campaigns and the lack of negotiation skills. Because running an auction doesn't really. You don't really need a lot of negotiation skills because it's a lot of emotion and a lot of theatre on the day. And now I can also say,
Edwin, let me just underscore that. So what you're saying is, because the goss that's put out by agents is we can get you a better price by taking it to auction, right? But what you've just said is, no, actually, the chances of getting a better price via the auction process is at least marginal, and actually probably you won't get the best because you don't necessarily have the best negotiation skills, and there are other ulterior motives that agents have for taking properties to auction. This is a really important point.
Look, it is, and this is look. I can. I won't name the actual addresses, but we've bought 4 properties in the last 3 weeks for clients where we've been given an extra anywhere between $100,000 to $150,000 more than what we bought the property for at auction. We bought it for less on the day, and our clients, we were given written instructions by our clients to go, in one case up to $150,000 more than what we paid for the property on the day. So there you have it. So it's not only by what I've seen, it's not only by what others. I mean, Neil Jenman's real strong on this, and he's got a lot more call it receipts, call it facts. I've compiled a lot of them over the years as well. I remember with Property Observer when Jennifer Duke was one of the main reporters in Property Observer. We actually followed a campaign where an auction in a property in Nashville where he got one in Nashville and one over in Greystanes. The properties got passed in at auction, and yet under a private treaty. Soon after under a different campaign with a different agent, the properties achieved a much higher value because the primary thing here is, Martin, is that a lot of people don't have a lot of time to what I say to fall in love with the property or to get more acquainted with the property, and also to do due diligence, which is also required in order to have more to be more ready, willing, and able to pay a lot more than what you would on the day, because there's always that level of hesitation, particularly when you don't really know. But unfortunately, a lot of this is convoluted. A lot of it, as we've said, is swayed by the selling agents on the day, and to get people to participate. And there's a lot of information that's not passed on that should be passed on.
Yes, and I also noticed, Edwin, that the average duration of an auction campaign seems to be shrinking. It was sort of 6 to 8 weeks. It's a lot less than that these days. And again, presumably that's to reduce the costs and try and get a quick result.
Well, we've done a couple of rants as to what a selling agent, in a hot market, let's in a market that's in a strong market, what a selling agent spends by way of hours on the preparation, sale, and after sale of a property, and that's around about 17 hours. When you start working out the average commissions, and then you work backwards from there to the amount of hours spent on a property when it is sold, when an average campaign generally runs for 8 weeks, let's say, when it's a private treaty campaign, and I've ran those numbers, and we said that an agent by way of hourly rate is earning upwards of 1,436 or thereabouts per hour. Now, when you start when you start cutting the marketing campaigns down, and that's not including vendor paid advertising that is also charged on top of the sales commission. So and then when you add that on, it adds you're closer to the $2,000 per hour. I mean, I know a lot of barristers that I could contract for under $2,000. For under $2,000. As a matter of fact, there are some really good barristers that I could contract for $500 an hour. But how many years of study do they have to do in order to earn that sort of coin, right? So what you've had over the years, you've pulled back from your 12-week campaign to your 8 weeks, and now by way of auction from 6 weeks to 3 weeks, and which gives very little time to do any proper due diligence from a purchaser's point of view. And in my opinion, a lot of properties are sold prematurely, as I said, because it's a hot market. There are a lot of properties that seem to fly, earlier before, a lot earlier than the day of the auction, because agents persuade vendors to accept first offers. I mean, each property has its own intrinsic value and approach. But in general terms, look, bringing agents would say, selling agents would say, well, if we squeeze the auction campaign down to 3 weeks, well, what it does is it compresses the inquiry, and there are a lot more people wanting to bid for it on the day. But does it really happen? I don't. As I said, from my own personal dealings, buying property for clients, and seeing what others, what properties get sold for, and so forth, I've formed the opinion that it really doesn't benefit the vendors. More and more I can see that it benefits the selling agents. The other, obviously, the other thing is the agents are able to slide or walk through in these short campaigns with not providing the material or the material facts that they should be providing to purchasers. This is primarily the reason why I'm saying that, and I'm calling for the state government to put a stop to sale by auction, because it really, a 3-week campaign or even a 4-week campaign does not give you the adequate time to do a due diligence, or does not give the average person the adequate time to do due diligence. More to the point, because a lot of them don't really know what to do. Now, even if you got your solicitor to request for certain paperwork from the local councils to see if things have been properly built by obtaining proper development applications, by getting occupation certificates and the like. Well, to get formal documentation from the council, it's anywhere between 19 and 21 days. Now, there are quicker ways to obtain certain information. You can make certain inquiries. You can talk to town planners over the counter, but a lot of people don't know this. So, and a lot of the people that get involved with auctions and pay crazy, crazy money. When I say crazy, they pay crazy money. They pay silly money then, because we're homes that have had extensions out of and have had additions and even second dwellings on the land, on the block of land, and without council approval, and now they're stuck with lemons, and now potentially they're stuck with demolition orders from the local councils.
Yeah, and I think it's worth underscoring, Edwin, that, and we've raised this a few times, that when the agents produce these sort of Mickey Mouse survey reports and other bits of paper, you got to understand that they are more about marketing than accurate, and they're actually caveated in such a way that the information is almost not worth reading. It's not worth the paper it's written on. And so again, from a prospective purchaser's point of view, there are a series of steps that you should be taking prior to buying a property. Now, if the marketing process is compressed, then the chances of you doing all the things that you should do becomes more and more unlikely, and you become more and more reliant on that marketing bump that the agents produce.
Yeah, look, the reason why agents started providing your before you bid or before you buy building and pest reports to purchasers was to circumvent the regulations that Dominello put in place many years ago in relation to because there was a lot of complaints predominantly around underquoting and how prospective purchasers were spending a lot of money on building reports, getting their own independent building reports in order to buy properties, and it was costing upwards of $550, $650 per report that they were commissioning. Apart from the fact you're still talking to your solicitor and they're still charging you anyway. So what the industry did obviously was say, okay, let's make it easier for purchasers. Let's provide building and pest reports, and also make it quicker for purchasers in a way to get ready for the auction, because the auctions are going, obviously, you don't necessarily go and inspect a home the first week it comes up on the market for sale. It's typically, in the majority, it's the second week around or even closer to the auction, depending on when that listing caught your attention. So that was to expedite the whole the whole process. But in doing so, what you ended up with, or what we've ended up with, and which is alarming, which the regulators haven't really cottoned onto, and the government haven't cottoned onto, is the fact that, as you said, these reports have become Mickey Mouse reports, and they're not worth the paper they're printed on. You're not even, they're just not worth a dime. Other than to give you a general guide to see if you are going to pursue it further, and that should just be a starting block, and you shouldn't really rely on that, because as I've said for many years, a lot of these inspectors would produce a report within 15, 20 minutes of inspecting the home, which is crazy. You don't get to understand it. You don't get to see what's really going on a 15, 20-minute survey. Now, if you recall, Martin, early last year, we actually recorded a selling agent, and I asked him, would you rely, as a selling agent, would you rely on a before you bid building pest report? And he said, no way. No effing way would he rely on it, because he knows what they're all about. Because you're not going to bite the hand that feeds you, because it's going to be an agency or a particular agent that is going to lead you to basically put put bread and butter on the table if you're an inspector. So this is where this whole issue has arisen, and what I've seen. I've got a couple of properties recently where the building and pest reports commissioned by the selling agents, and this is just recently. I've got others from previous years, but the building reports commissioned by the selling agents and the vendor are no way reflective of the true condition of the property, where one does not identify major defects, and there's major defects identified in the building report that's commissioned separately to the ones provided by the selling agent. And the unfortunate thing is, because people rely on the professionalism and honesty of the selling agents, they fall for it, Martin. And this is something that, as I've been saying for a while, you've got a situation where properties are going up in value. I mean, they're horrendously expensive in many parts of Sydney, and they're looking at Mickey Mouse reports, as you say. They're looking at Mickey Mouse reports that are by no way means reflective of the true condition of the property, and the cost to get a lot of these things rectified. It's not in the tens of thousands, potentially. It's in the hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Well, absolutely, and of course, quite often the problems don't emerge until you've completed. And then, of course, the question is, what recourse, if any, do you have? And then it's when you discover that the little clauses in those documents basically say it's nothing to do with us, So you have no protection. And getting objective, independent reports from people who actually know what they're doing and what they're talking about, building surveyors, for example, that takes time and effort, and of course costs money as well. But it's a critical protection, isn't it, against tripping up. And then, of course, you've got to rely on your lawyer or solicitor looking at things like, are the building documents up to date? Have the approvals been made for all of the amendments and changes and alterations? We've touched on this before. Quite often you'll find that there's actually, something that's been done to the property, maybe an extension added that's not actually gone through council formally. And as you say, that risks then, being demolished or having to try and get retrospective agreements, and that can be quite difficult, which of course, again, is costly. So the point of all of this is that in this very compressed time frame, 3 weeks, the chances of doing the full due diligence you need to do is actually quite difficult to do. So what it puts under the question is whether this whole process is one that is valid, which is why you're now calling it to be stopped.
Yeah, look, and it has to be stopped, because and you've got we're going to talk about the the makeup of the population makeup, and we've been talking for a while now as to who's buying and who's leading the charge in a lot of areas of Sydney in buying property and somewhat pushing the prices upwards even for the locals. But in the majority, most of the people that are buying are new migrants as well, or they may not necessarily be new migrants, but there's groups from ethnic backgrounds that trust and believe the selling agents as being fully trustworthy and honest, not realizing that they're working for the vendor. And this is where again we've got a problem where oftentimes also is that there's a lot of selling agents out there that are very ignorant of what they're selling by way of price, by way of condition, by way of material fact. And so you could say on the one hand it's ignorance, but you could also say on the other hand it's also willful ignorance. I'll call it negligence, but it's willful ignorance because they don't want to know, and they use the premise, well, if the vendor doesn't tell me, it's okay. When I came into the real estate industry, my licensee in charge, I don't know whether he watches our show, David Horder, he's he used to grill me, day in, day out when I was basically doing my traineeship in the real estate industry, and I had to go to council. We had to. If the vendor didn't tell us, he made us check things for ourselves, which is how we got taught. When I came into the industry about 28 years ago, but all that's been lost now. A lot of the selling agents, they don't know how to research themselves. And they pass on information that they hear or they believe or they think is correct, to the point where even I get told by selling agents, oh look, if the renovation's been there for 6 or 7 years and the council hasn't picked up on it, it's okay. Don't worry about it. You won't have any issues with it. It's a problem if the council picks it up within 6 to 7 years. And this is what I put up. I tagged the council that this property was at recently, and I tagged the council and I said, "Is this to be the case in your LGA? Can you clarify this, because I've never heard of such a such a thing." But he was adamant that the conveyancer had told him that was the case. When I was questioning a property that I attended an auction for, that one of our clients was interested in over the weekend, which I posted on X, and it's been doing the rounds, and hence the reason why it just got to the point where on the weekend I was just so annoyed with the whole process that I said, that's it. It's time to make our mate Tom cry, and to call the attention of the regulators and the government as to the issue and the problem that a lot of purchasers are facing. Now, the question is, because the mainstream media have a love affair with auction results, and a lot of commentators have a love affair with auction results, and obviously, there's this, predominantly it's the mainstream media, they want to put out a lot of stories about the growth and about this and about how much you went over reserve and this and this and that. I mean, it's this love affair. So, is my call going to gain any traction? Do they want to? Will the mainstream media start reporting on a lot of things that I tagged them on as well, on a lot of the issues when you start really drilling into what happens at auctions when people don't get given the adequate time to assess values, to assess conditions of a property. And as I said, most of the ethnic communities, and also the Aussies, the young people, don't know what to look for and don't know what information to relay to their conveyancers or solicitors in order to get the proper legal advice.
No, it is a bit of a nightmare, and it's just worth reminding everybody that a lot of the mainstream media, particularly the property portals, are very strongly connected with some of the mainstream media. So there is actually a rather worrying, bias in a lot of the property reporting. I mean, look, let's take this weekend, for example, right? This came out and said that buyers are still snapping up homes despite renewed fears of inflation were more persistent than expected. So it sort of just keeps going along the same old story. Or here's another one, right? This is real estate agent doubles his money by selling his own apartment for $6.5 million from the deputy property editor there. Or this one, mum nabs 1.36 pad for daughter. It was one of 630 auctions in Sydney yesterday. I mean, all of this is really just spruiking. And I guess, Edwin, my point is that this stuff that gets churned out again and again and again, right? We've got to ask why. Well, the first reason is this relationship between the media and the property portals, because, of course, property portals win every time somebody clicks. But they also, the real estate win, but also the media win, because of course this generates clicks on their websites, and they're being measured in terms of the clicks they get. And these sorts of stories actually tickle people's fancy, so a lot of people will click through to read it. So the media, the real estate sector, and social media are all scrambled in this remarkable story. And I have to say, this is more propaganda than news.
Yeah, look, it is, and this is why I say is, will this get any traction if the media so intertwined, so in love with auction clearance? So look at the commentary that it generates on X when you start talking about clearance rates, and from both sides of the fence.
Yep.
Look how people get dragged in and get caught up in all that riffraff and fanfare and emotion. And as I keep on calling out a lot of the reporters that report on auctions that are going anywhere upwards of 15 to 35% above the guides. I mean, I keep on reminding them, listen here, okay, fair enough, but what the real story, in my opinion, is that the vendor, on the one hand, gave the listing to a selling agent that didn't know the true value of the home, right? Or on the other hand, underquoted. It can't be any other. So why would you do any one of those two? But the story don't see it that way. The media don't see the story, don't paint the stories that way. They paint the stories a lot differently. All around emotion, all around hugging and kissing and everything else. Look, I'll tell you something, Martin. Because of the research that we do, right? You're talking about those articles that were talking about how an agent doubled his money by selling the property. So now I've DM'd a number of reporters through X. I've been banned, right? I've been banned by an agency to go to their open house inspections. And the reason being that I've been banned by an agency is because the homes that my client at the time was looking at buying, that they were getting a lot of texts from this particular agent, and they got to know this agent, they got to know my client, and then they were texting her, and I was sent along to have a look at it. And the reason why I got banned was because I went to Ride Council to inquire on two of the properties that they were selling that my client was interested in, and I made proper due diligence inquiry over the counter and found out that the extra dwellings and the extensions to the different properties and what they were trying to pass out as granny flat studios that they were getting rentals for were not council approved. Now I had a notion that they weren't council approved because of other checks and balances that we do. But when we look at the contracts of sale, when we look at the sewer diagrams, when we look at, and you get the general idea, you get the general gist that a granny flat is not going to be allowed on the boundary. At best case scenario, when the house was originally built, that was a rear yard garage that you were allowed to build smack on the boundary, but it was definitely not a granny flat because you wouldn't get the council approvals and that. But that's because we know the game. We understand. So now I had a bit of a discussion with the licensee in charge, a bit of a heated discussion with the licensee in charge when questioning this and one of their agents. The long and the short of it is I've been banned from attending their open house inspections. So I try to reach out to reporters, but they don't want to report on that. You see, it doesn't sell, it doesn't get clicks. It doesn't sell, I was going to say it doesn't sell newspapers. Shit, since when was the last time we bought a newspaper? But it doesn't sell, subscriptions to the AFR or to the ABC or wherever you get your news from. It doesn't sell subscriptions. All I was doing and all I'm doing, and I said to the licensee in charge, why are you so angry with me? I've got it on text. Why are you so angry with me that I'm doing the due diligence that should be, that every buyer should be buying? And I start questioning and I go, oh, but that's not the thing to do. And I put it to the licensee in charge. I said, look, let me ask you something. So if you like a property, if you were to see a property, if you like a property, and one, it was guiding at 2 million, but you knew for a fact that the property was going to be was worth around the 2.4. You go in there and what would you do? So if I like the property, I'll just pay what the agent wants me to pay for it. And as a matter of fact, that's how I bought my property over in Paddington. I said, really? Well, you've got more money than sense as far as I'm concerned, but hey, that's you. Unfortunately, that's not my client, and I've got a license to also look after, and I've got to do whatever I need to do and whatever is deemed within my reach and within my my requirements. Why they've hired me in order to to try and get them the best deal and to make sure that it's that we cover all and do all the due diligence. So I mean, there was a few other choice words said along the way, and as I said, so I am banned. I can send any one of our other, I can send Dusty or Evan or Chris to inspect the homes, but I'm not allowed to set foot in the open house inspections. Now, I haven't taken it further. I haven't taken it with fair trading, but that's and as we speak, I'm expecting similar from this agent in the West region that I've been questioning. The fact that that the selling agents are refusing to give me to provide to my vendor occupation certificates and the DA approvals for the extensions to the dwellings. But the unfortunate thing, Martin, is you go to the auction and you see 6-7 people registered, and the 4 people that I spoke to on Sunday out of the 7 that were registered to bid, the 4 people that I spoke with, they didn't even inform. They didn't even know that that there was question marks over the extensions to the house. This is what you get.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's, Edwin, worth just thinking, if you go back a few years, right, auctions were a minority sport. And there were perhaps examples, if you had siblings who couldn't agree on what to do about a property, when the elderly person died, or perhaps it was to do with you got a couple of people who really don't know what the value of a property is, so deceased estates, that sort of. I mean, there were very specific reasons why you might go to auction. Otherwise, you probably wouldn't, right? Whereas now, it seems to me that auctions have become almost the de facto way of trying to sell a property, almost whatever the property type is. And you got to ask the question, well, who's benefiting from this? And the answer is the auction transactions, the auction campaigns benefit the selling agent, period.
Yeah, that's it, because they get a quicker commission. They get a quicker commission, regardless whether they achieve the best result for the vendor, or regardless of what Furbies and lies they told, and how they misrepresented the actual price. on the day or during the campaign, they still get paid.
Hmm.
They still get paid, yeah. And as you said, if you go back to the purpose of auction campaigns, those points do resound, and that was to resolve a dispute, a legal dispute between a party, typically in the state, through a divorce, or siblings squabbling over the estate. And that was way to like a court order, in other words. And also, it was also used by when the trustees were the actual state, and they needed to stay at arm's length from the sale of the property, so that they wouldn't have any comeback, or the property was left to the state because there were no no beneficiaries of the estate, or there were or it was So they were the main reasons. But right now everything, as you said, it's the default position, and as we said earlier on, and it really benefits the agent. Unfortunately, it doesn't give the purchasers the adequate time to do the proper due diligence. I said we can take quicker steps to get information, because we know what to do, and we know what to look for, and we can get a rough idea, and we will press agents to get certain information, to the point where it becomes we sort of strain the relationship between ourselves. But at the end of the day, I try to make it a point, and so do my colleagues in our office. We try to make it a point with the selling agents, say that this is what we are hired to do. And if it gets too hard, we also recommend to our vendors, to our purchasers, that if we can't get the right information at the right time, it's their choice whether we pursue it, and we pursue it at a price that we would feel comfortable with, should there be future issues with the council, to the point where even if demolition orders were placed on the dwelling. There are certain councils that will let you do what's called a building information certificate, or a reverse DA, but there are a lot of councils that won't. They'll just issue a demolition order, and it's you get it in place, and get a chainsaw and cut the bloody thing out, and rectify whichever way you want. Take it back to its original condition, and then apply, and then we'll see whether or not we. And there are some developments, Martin. There are some extensions that will just not. They'll never be approved, because they go beyond the controls that the councils have. As I said, they won't let you build a granny flat on the boundary of the land. That's just something. They won't let you build over a sewer easement line going through the land. There's certain controls there. You might even have overhead power lines. There'll be all different types of easements and things. So those controls. Once you breach that, it's hard. So hence the reason why people do it on the slide and on the side, and then they sort of reap the consequences later on, or when they offload the property, the agents pretend they don't know. If they don't know, then they don't have to tell. They say, but which is not true.
Well, that's right. Exactly right. So, the messages here are: do due diligence, be careful if you go into the auction context, and bear in mind, of course, that the mainstream media, particularly those connected to the property portals, are spruiking. But it's interesting, Edwin, if you look carefully, there's, I think, what I call cognitive dissonance out there at the moment. What I mean is, on one hand, you've got all of this massive story about property's booming, everybody's buying, everybody's winning, etc., etc. But then you've got this other story, which is actually the one that I'm taking more seriously. Things like, well, national single day average price for unleaded hit 91. Leaded 91 hit $2.17 on Friday, or 1,000 cuts to stay alive. There's a quarter of Queenslanders on the verge of losing it all, or the cost of living bites. So this other story, or households have $10,000 less non-essential spending slashed. The renters' pain that we've covered previously, the rise of the growth in rough sleepers. All of those things are actually really, really concerning. And, this is the other side of the story. And I think I want to make the point, Edwin, that quite a few of these journalists are also getting a lot of clicks, because you can get clicks by talking about all of these issues on the economy and the cost of living and, housing and homelessness as well. But of course, there are other different journalists, the ones that are directly connected to the portals. So quite often, what you can find in the same, area of news, you have property prices are booming, and you've got, rental crisis next door to each other. It's like cognitive dissonance. And then just to add to the sort of the story, if you think about what's happened with prospects of rates, well, of course, now people are saying, well, the inflation looks like a 10-year journey to the end rather than the last mile, according to an article that Richard Holton has put out in the Financial Review, or more rate pain coming. Economists warn of at least 2 increases for home mortgages potentially. Others saying, well, wait and see what happens, but there's a risk that rates may have to go up. But then they're also blaming boomers, because boomers are sitting on massive amounts of wealth. And boomers, of course, are not necessarily mortgaged up, so they're not actually feeling it. So they're still spending, and that's one reason why rates might go higher. And then just to add a bit of insult to injury, you've got migrants now, 35,000 foreign-born people coming and taking social housing as government wait lists soar to 57,000 in New South Wales. So you've got this massive contradiction, right, between these two realms. And it's like, well, they can't both be true. It really can't both be true. But guess what? It's all about clicks.
Yeah, well, it's all about clicks. The first thing that I want to say to what you just shared, Martin, is the way you teach these reporters, the way you teach them, and you don't give them the click through things that they want, is you take a screenshot of the story and you repost the screenshot, your screenshot, not the actual
Yes.
not the actual URL or the actual thing. So I'm not that computer savvy. So and in that way they don't get. You can have a discussion amongst your groups on whatever social media, but it'd be generally that's what I do, because I understand that, and I get tired of these people, and I'm not going to give it to them. I'll just simply take a screenshot. That's how you deal with these cronies. With regards to the dissidents that you're talking about, the story that are right next to each other, but yet they're poles apart. The undercurrent that flows with these property transactions that many talk about, and these prices that are being achieved at the moment, and in these fanfare and just watching this the property market just surge. The undercurrent to that is going back to where we started. The rant is the unknown factors that people face post purchasing of a property, and even if they found out once a property settled, it's very difficult to get recourse. I mean, there are ways to get recourse. If you documented things properly, like we've shared with our followers and viewers, you can get recourse on the agent's insurance, on the on the building inspector's insurance, on the professional indemnity insurance, the whole bit. So they're right, but it's costly. It is costly. So the undercurrent to a lot of that, Martin, is that a lot of people are facing, as I said, rectification and repairs to the properties that they pay top dollar for, or as I say, or they paid above the odds because they got caught up in the emotion. And now they're having to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars to rectify the property when they thought they were buying something that was already renovated. That is a huge undercurrent that hasn't been reported or hasn't been touched on as yet. The undercurrent with the rental side of things and the stress that renters are facing, and you talked about the potential rate rises. What that's also going to do is obviously going to push building and construction even further out. There are other stories on the AFR and other publications that came out in the last day or so that with the rate pain that's coming, you've also got the undercurrent there is that builders don't want to build. They don't want to take the risk to build. So it's pushing building, even though the majority is centered around high-rise development. It's pushing builders not to take that risk because the cost to build is been pushed out to the point where now you got reporters taking on what we've been saying, that it's going to be a very long time before we can even come anywhere close or say that we're getting any traction in delivering any substance by way of construction to meet the demand that's been created by the current immigration policy of the government. So that's the other undercurrent. But the scarier undercurrent to me, Martin, is the move from your traditional rental market by way of taking the properties away from your traditional rental market into your self-managed arena, self-managed side of things, where which is what we call the budget accommodation, the illegal boarding homes, and so forth, where you're piling in families, 2-3 families in a one household, and you're separating a house into 3 dwellings with no firewalls in between, no smoke alarms, no sense to safety. By way of reducing fire hazards or anything like that, or by way of there's no real sense to conscientious mitigating any other health issues as well, because by this overpopulating the dwelling, so you've got by cramming so many people in one household, in one property. So that's the biggest undercurrent that still hasn't been talked about. It still hasn't been addressed by the powers to be. And this is where the WeChat chatterers, unfortunately, this is where look, it's a demographic that they've been doing this for a very long time. It's not just recently that they've been doing this. But from what the WeChat chatters are saying, what they're talking about is that just talking about the same things that you and I talk about, but they talk about it in the sense of let's go out there and buy houses, because there's rental increases coming on in the last 3 months. Some suburbs have experienced a rental increase of $400 over a period of 3 months. That's what they talk about. They pick that up and they talk about it and they go out there. Hence the reason why we are seeing the force that we've been seeing over the last few years of the WeChat chatterers, because they're not interested in businesses. They're not interested in retail shops. They're not interested in running a mum and dad takeaway shop, or a Chinese takeaway shop, or a restaurant. They're your second generation Aussie Chinese or Chinese Aussies, whatever you want to call them, and they're very, very much focused on buying homes that they can convert into multiple accommodations. So that's a chatter. And then if you look at what the ABS put out by way of Australia's fastest growing population by country of birth. Look at what the top countries that are influencing that growth are the groups of ethnic background that favour or lean towards that budget accommodation scenarios. And this is the scary part, Martin, that we're pushing what the current immigration policies have done is pushing, in my opinion, it's a ticking time bomb before we start having a lot more accidents, injuries, death, events in these sort of homes, and because it's not easing, it's getting worse and worse. And this is another reason why we've seen the numbers on market for rentals in Sydney dropped to so low. It's a different story down in Melbourne, of course, but that's what's happening from the point of view of the chatterers.
Yes, and of course we've been talking about the chatterers and the tigers, and the other foreign influences who've come in. The migration, of course, is very strong, and that's putting a lot of demand on the property sector. But the point is that a lot of these people coming in are looking for properties that they can split up and, as you say, let out rooms. And it changes the game about the value of the property. And it also, of course, changes the game in terms of the rental story as well. And so this is another very disruptive influence. And I don't know what you think, Edwin, but I think, again, that the powers that be are not really monitoring the really concerning change in the quality of rental properties that are available. And we said earlier on that in some cases, some of the property investors are actually not keeping their properties maintained because it's too expensive, et cetera, et cetera. But overlay this, the idea of converting a house into, multiple single occupancies without necessarily getting permission, all of those things are happening. And so this is just another consequence of this massive migration flow that's been, turned up to 11. And whilst there's lip service to dialing it back, at the moment, the numbers are still peaked.
Yeah, and this is and it's crazy. And then when you got other policies that the second thing that the chatterers have been talking about is what you and I have been discussing for a while now, and that is the changes to the NCC and the materials that are going to be used post the end of this financial year, in relation to the bench tops, the engineered stone, and they started talking about in order to make construction a lot cheaper. Well, we have to import a lot of different materials from overseas. So the chatterers this week have been talking about that, and these are points that you and I have raised before many months ago. In relation to stone, when we first got wind of the changes that the government was going to make to the engineered stone. And if you recall, Martin, we were discussing the radioactivity in some of the natural stones, apart from asbestos that we also keep on finding out in the different areas that natural areas that you'll find asbestos as well. But so I thought bring this to the attention of our viewers, because I did read some commentary from when we first shared this, that some didn't believe what the chatterers were saying, that some of the natural stone has radioactivity, and this is an extract from the it is an American the American EPA, but it goes back to some of the stones that materials that contain small traces of radioactivity. Now, I said that in China, they don't use a lot of the red deep granites and natural stones in the residential homes, like you see here by way of tiles or floor tiles and that, or even in some bench tops, because they've known for many years that these stones, particularly the deeper the deeper coloured stones, have got radioactive qualities about them. So I mean, in that blue, in the purple section there, it says many homes contain decorative rock and stones such as granite and marble, because these rocks were formed in the Earth's crust. They may include a small amount of natural occurring radioactive material from the Earth. If you read further in that article, it also brings out a new gas that I haven't heard of before. It talks about some of these natural radioactivity found in building material decays. When the natural radioactivity found in building material decays, it releases the radioactive gas radon. Obviously, these are articles from the American EPA, but lo and behold, I forgot to send you the screenshot of where radon is found in Sydney. And obviously, it's not the traces of radon in Sydney are not as high as in America. But the thing was, Martin, that when you read through those articles, you start reading the fact that it's a lot of it is when you start digging basements, when you start digging into the ground, where you start coming across this, and it's from basically from you get a lot of this radon deposits in Sydney, in the North Shore, in the eastern suburbs, and also around your Parramatta region. So it was rather interesting. And these are the areas where we decided to dig for high-rise development. Now, I must say that when I was reading through some of the material, the Australian, the radon that affects some of the landscape here in Sydney, it's not as caustic or not as high as what you would find in America, but it's still of concern. It's still of concern nonetheless, and yet we are hell bent on building high-rise developments with not only single basements but 2, 3, and in some cases they'll push the boundaries to 4 basements, and only God knows what sort of toxic fumes are coming up through the basements in a lot of these areas. Notwithstanding the fact that when you start going below 3 basements, or when you start pushing to 3 basements, to get the fumes that from the cars, you really need to, the electric pumps don't cope. And the only alternative is diesel pumps to cope with the fumes, to extract the fumes from the basements. But obviously, that having a diesel pump down there defeats the purpose, right? But these are the boundaries that we're pushing. So we're not making it easier. But the main thing was that they're talking about, that the WeChat chatters are talking about, is stay away from new construction, stay away from off the plan construction, from new construction. Particularly because of the materials that are going to be imported by builders, by developers, in order to try and keep the costs down of these new developments. So they know it. The WeChat chatterers are ahead of the curve, and they've known for a while. But yet, again, we need to build because of the immigration policy. And again, this is another undercurrent that is not going to be discussed until we're going to start having issues. But when do we have these issues, Martin? Is it going to be 10 years down the track, 20 years down the track, 30 years down the track, after people being living in these badly built dog boxes that are infested with all sorts of chemicals and products, because we decided to open up our borders to cheap materials in order to keep up with the construction demands? Is that what's going to happen?
Well, that's a good question, Edwin. I mean, I know all about radon because I used to live in Cornwall, in the UK, and a lot of Cornwall is actually covered, or shall I say, intruded through with granite. So granite is this, very, very hard rock. It's volcanic rock, and in fact, now in some areas of Cornwall, properties have to have radon pumps because there's too much radon coming out of the ground, and so it actually needs to be extracted because it's highly dangerous and can lead to, as the article says, breathing difficulties and lung cancer and things. And 20, 30, 40 years ago, almost nobody was taking it very seriously. But now, certainly in the UK, in parts of the country where radon gas is a real issue, you have to actually, as part of the building program, include radon extraction as part of it. So it's absolutely critical. But more broadly, your issue about the poor quality of construction resonates with an article that I published earlier on, actually on the channel here. And it was called "The Crippling High-Rise Disaster Continues." And in there, I spoke about the fact that many tenants and many landlords were being forced to pay a lot more for, fixing up properties where the high-rise construction had actually failed to deal with building properly. And in some cases, people were now being asked to pay special levies here and other levies there. Owners were now going bankrupt because of it. And I had quite a few people react to that. And interestingly, the other part of it was I had quite a few, more than 20 actually, people who are working in the construction industry. And the common thread from the conversation was this: almost nobody is talking about this other than you guys. And so they really were very concerned about the quality of construction that's still going on across the country in Australia because of the poor building regulations and the poor quality of materials. So despite the fact that we've got people living in properties paying a lot more to try and get them rectified, we've still got stuff today being built when effectively what we've got is poor quality construction still being endorsed, and of course more high-rise construction being essentially argued for, and more people saying we've got to build up to solve our housing situation. And this is, again, another disaster that's already confronting us. And as I said, we've got lots of people reacting to our earlier shows and to my show last week.
And the crazy thing is, Martin, is that the developers, the developers slash builders that are going to be commissioned to build these are waiting for the government to put their hand in the taxpayer's pocket and subsidise the construction, like the developers told us at the beginning of the year when you and I broke the story. So it's a watch this space, and everything is pointing to that now because of they're reluctant to build. They won't build. That I got it from the horse's mouth when we spoke about it on the channel. I got it from the horse's mouth from the medium-tier developers that predominantly build Sydney, and yeah, we're a lot closer than what a lot of people think that's going to. It's going to happen. It's just around the corner. But in the meantime, we just keep on watching the numbers.
Yeah, well, let's talk about the numbers just briefly as we come to the end of the show. So this is the Sydney numbers for the 22nd. We had 16,116 properties, and jump forward to the 29th, 16,232, just a slight rise. And in fact, if you look at the trends compared with 2023, in fact, now listings are just slightly higher.
Yeah, just a little bit higher. It's like I said, we're moving into winter. We really pulled back last year, and the numbers really toppled. But it's going to see what people do and how they react. So far, it hasn't been as chilly as it was last year. But look, we're pretty much on par. But again, we go back to the underscoring this is with the fact that there's a lot more demand now than there was in 2023. That's the unfortunate thing. But but on that note, Melbourne keeps on piling them on. It's only a slight drop. I mean, minuscule drop in their numbers from last week to this week. But I think that they'll continue to they'll stay steady. If anything, I can as investors continue to break out of Melbourne and move out of Melbourne because of the high land tax costs, and this is the other reason why. Obviously, we picked up on that trend from last year. How investors were pulling after the WeChat charters, because obviously the land tax is payable on the land component. And this is why we're seeing a lot of freestanding homes for sale in Melbourne, as opposed to the number of apartments that are on there. They've got I think more than double freestanding homes on market than what they have apartments.
Yeah, absolutely. And the Melbourne story continues to deteriorate again. If you look at the price trends, and if you look at the mixture of properties that are being sold, more property investors exiting the broader Melbourne and regional areas as well. And there was some data that I saw from another source also confirming the same trends that we're seeing, that Sydney and Melbourne are going in quite different directions. Just checking into Brisbane briefly, hardly any movement, 3260 on the 22nd, 3272 on the 29th, so a very minor uplift. And looking at the auctions, well, it's beginning to get a little bit quieter now. But, there's still some auction activity. But as we discussed earlier on, Edwin, of course, there are ulterior motives for auctions, aren't there?
Yeah, and this is why we just share it, because we just like to share them. They don't really mean a lot, other than just to create a bit of. We from time to time we'll bring in the Tom Panos index, and we bring other stuff to the table. But people seem to get they like to get all excited about the numbers. The thing that we can see is the numbers in Melbourne are picking up. They'll try to get out whichever way they can. When the rats jump ship, they'll go every which way.
Absolutely. Well, let's just briefly look at the rental story. So in Sydney on the 22nd, there was 9,732 properties for rent, jumped forward a week, 9,997. So a slight rise that you'd expect at this time of year, because, of course, the influx of students at the start of the year has dissipated a little, but migration is still quite strong. Looking at Melbourne, 8,850 last week and 8,947 this week. So in both cases, a slight inflection up, but still significant demand for rental property. Rents, of course, continuing to rise. So the CPI data that came out recently showed very strong increases in rents again. More people struggling to find anywhere. And as I touched on earlier, that's leading to more homelessness, people living in tent cities and all of that stuff. So it shows you that the rental sector is just broken.
Yeah, and the unfortunate thing, what I heard over the week, Martin, is the similar to last week, which I alluded to. There's construction is in a number of areas. Projects have completed, so they've added to the numbers. Other things also that have I know a few granny flat builders. They're telling me that quite a number of granny flats have that they've been working on, or they know it because they're in that industry. It's like a small little world in there. They've been built. Mum and dad built them for the children to come back from the private rentals to move back in with mum and dad. So they're accommodating for the children to come back, because of the cost of living is just too high. People are moving back home, so this is why we're sort of getting a little bit of an uplift as well, apart from your natural seasonal trends. And apart from that is there are more and more there's more and more chatter of families. I say young ones moving back home.
Yep.
And foregoing their apartments or shared accommodation elsewhere because of the cost of living expenses are just getting high. So there you see a little bit of a rise in numbers, but the demand is still out there, and the rental. The rental values are going up on a monthly basis. They're not retreating because they're not really putting a dent in the Sydney in the Sydney region, according to like domain that we look at.
Spot on. Well, as we come to the end of the show, Edwin, before I get you to give us tip of the week, I should just say that your cats have wrecked your set remarkably behind you. It was very funny at one stage. Your banner disappeared and the cats had a lovely game with it. So it's very, very fun.
Yeah, I was watching it on the screen. I was watching it.
Excellent. Now, tip of the week. I suppose, home cooked meals are probably best, but when you go out, watch what you eat.
Yeah, look, because of the cost of living and the cost of living expenses, I shared some tweets, some posts on X last week and over the weekend because I'm out on the road a lot. The thing is, things are just getting so more and more expensive to eat out. Seriously have to choose where I eat. You need to be choose wisely where you eat, and also health wise choose wisely what you eat. Unfortunately, a number of friends that I've caught up with over the weekend, two of them have they've got type 2 diabetes, and I mean, I said, but man, you've never really looked after your health, and the older we get, the more we're susceptible to a lot of these things. So apart from, I was just showing it because of some posts that I put up over the on X over the weekend, and just taking going out with the guys and meeting with clients with me. I mean, got to the point where really there's for me now, when driving around and trying to get something to eat, it's very difficult. I've become very choosy, so I'm at the point now where I've try to prepare something so I can munch on as I'm driving, or something that's healthy, or have the and there are some times where it's late to getting home because of the traffic, the congestion. But I have to make a concerted effort to eat better. And there's nothing, in my view, more nutritious and better than a home cooked meal. But a lot of people don't have that comfort or that privilege, and it's it's sad to see what goes on out there. But it's also even on the other side, call it a shame or a scam. What they're doing, but the meals are getting smaller, the portions are getting smaller, and the prices seem to be climbing. It just doesn't stop, Martin. We're getting hit from all sides.
Well, I agree, and you don't know, of course, the quality of the materials that went into build the meal, just like the quality of materials going into high-rise construction. So sometimes roll your own is best. My other piece of advice is exercise is good. So I'm aiming for my 25,000 steps a day, and roughly keeping to it. So trying to eat well and exercise. So, you've got to look after yourself, because nobody else is going to do that, is it? So, Edwin, I want to say thank you very much. I think a very thoughtful show today, but very, very important messages as always. And we'll be back to do another one next week, but it'll feel like tomorrow afternoon as normal. So I'll see you then.
See you next week, man.
Cheers. Take care.